Hey, how are we all doing today? My name is David Gugino, and in today's book review, I actually have a autobiography that I am breaking down today, and it is Strongman. My story: Skinny Kid, the world's strongest man, Eddie the Beast Hall. Now, since I'm into weightlifting and I'm a powerlifter myself, this is a fairly famous individual that I've learned, and is actually one of my inspirations to train to be strong and not just big. So the reason why this book is kind of inspiring to me is just because this guy went through some troubled times due to his own decisions and through a certain death in the family that he had. But not only that, he had a very good work ethic, and he was very just strong. Like, he just started lifting weights, and then he has one of those stories where he found something he was good at and wanted to be better at it. So in this book, what I learned, what I knew about Eddie Hall before I read this book was I knew he broke the world record deadlift. I knew he was known for his pressing strength, and I also knew he was known for his work ethic. And when I say work ethic, not just in the gym, like, he afforded everything on his own before he had sponsors, before he also did it on top of a family. He was a diesel mechanic, owned his own security company, spent his money on food and training, was actually a pretty good mechanic. He actually built his own hyperbaric chamber by himself, which I think that's nuts. I'm able to build anything by yourself, I think is nuts. I'm trying to learn to be a mechanic myself, and I'm still struggling, but I learned that about him, and I also just recently learned that, not just recently learned, but I also learned about Eddie is that he became the best in the world in in a couple of years. It took him a few years to do it, but he went through a lot of trials. Trials as in his wife was about to leave him because he was never home. He failed the world record deadlift one time. His 500 kilo deadlift that he broke, which made history, almost killed him. He was raising this on top of a family, which was hard, and then his nan that passed away, which was his inspiration to become the strongest man in the world. And I also just really learned that his obsession with it was nuts. Now, he still cared for his family, don't get me wrong, but he had such a goal. Like, the why was so big in his goal that he was willing to do whatever it takes. Like, in his book, the book that I read, we're going back to the book. Someone asked him what he did in his spare time. He goes, I have no spare time. It is work out, take care of my family, and that's it. And when training for the world's strongest man, that's what he did. That's how you train. And people say that stuff is a selfish sport. I mean, it can be, but you can manage around hanging out with friends or spending time with your family and stuff like that. But what I knew before him was just as an influencer, his stuff is just funny. Not only that, but if Eddie Hall, shout out to you. You are a funny guy. I will admit, you are a quality entertainer. But he has a sense of humor. He is just really strong in anything still. Very strong in anything. His work ethic was good. And I remember discovering him by watching a documentary on Netflix about him. Because when he won the World's Strongest Man, he retired to spend time with his family, but the people that he competed with and his sponsors and stuff all followed him. He's more famous now, but this is what I learned about him that I really enjoyed. I did know he had brothers, and now his brothers don't play a huge role in his strongman career, but nowadays I haven't really seen them. But the other reason why I read this book is because I had a friend at the gym recommend it to me. He goes, "Did you know Eddie Hall has an autobiography?" I'm like, "No." I actually believe I ordered it that day when I found out it was needed. But when I found out I wanted to read it. So in this particular part, he talks about obsession with his goal. Now, he has one just particular line that I'm going to read before I get into some of his stories. It's the narcissists with no self-awareness who are the ones who annoy people in gym. Actually, I'm sorry. So something he says in here is, it's the narcissists with no self-awareness who are the ones who annoy people in gyms annoy people in gyms are absolutely full of them. The lads with a fake tan and the Gucci vest and trainers who only train their chest and biceps, we all know a few of them, and the chances are there might be one or two reading this book. Isn't that funny? Well, if you're one of those hetero oblivious narcissists, stop being a twat and start making it work for you. And get over with the fake tan. You look like an idiot. Anyway, back to high school if we must. Even though I didn't take place and was in the wrong crowd, I still managed to utilize some of my academic potential and without trying again, managed to force myself into the top set for every single subject. I was also the class clown, so even in class, all I did was dick around. Once again, this is vexed the arse off the poor devils. I can imagine him reading this in his British accent. Off the poor devils who had strived to achieve academic excellence, and when their frustrations came to the fore, I used to enjoy perfecting my cockiness on them. They used to get so worked up. Bless them. So not only that, but I did learn that Eddie Hall had a kind of annoying reputation. Yeah, but a reputation as I think he was just goofy. He was goofy and he was kind of a hothead, but one of the things I learned before I read this was he got kicked out of school because another kid was picking on somebody else and he beat him up. But what happened is, this is why a trial in his life, what happened was after he beat that kid up, he was a swimmer. Like, really good at swimming, could have gone somewhere, but got kicked off the swim team due to that situation in his life. So the other story that I read, this is what I learned in the book, is there's a story where he was working security one night, and no, he was working a bar, he was at a bar, and there was another situation where he got mad at somebody, and it took 12 police, I believe it was 12, maybe, took about 12 police officers to restrain him. He was also training for the strongest man at the time. I can't imagine that. 12 police officers trying to restrain Eddie Hall. I cannot imagine that. Ain't that crazy? But when it said 20 police and 2 brothers is the name of the chapter. So what I really should have done is find the actual story here. But let's see, because I'm looking for the number 12. But let's see here. But what he also learned is about education. By the time I took my GCSEs, you could easily have mistaken me for a 30-year-old man. I was about 6 foot 2 inches, 16 stone, and I had a skinhead and pierced nipple and scars all over me. I looked like rough as a nut. But because of what happened over the last couple of years, I also had both the personality and the character to match my mature appearance. And looking back, I definitely benefited from all that independence. Who cares if it was forced? 2 other things I benefited from back then and do now were my parents' work ethic, which has always been impressive, and a morbid fear of being skipped. The latter had been with me since high school, and coupled with an entrepreneurial spirit, a bit of nous and a few decent contacts. I took more money from my fellow pupils than the lady working the till in the dinner hall. I started off by selling cigarettes, which were easy to get a hold of, and I sold one for 50 pounds. Bearing in mind they were probably about $3 a pack. Back then, that's not a bad markup, and right from year 7, I was like a walking tobacconist. 2, Lambert and Butler, yeah, okay, that's a quid. Go on and then piss off. I was like cross between Del Boy and Charles Bronson. For those of you who don't know Charles Bronson, not the actor, but is a famous British prisoner. Once the entrepreneur in me had started coming to the fore, I moved on to selling dodgy PlayStation games. It was chipping consoles left and right and center. After that, I started selling pirate DVDs in my 4 and a bit years at high school. I must have made thousands. And then he says, despite all the crap going on in my life, this made me realize that there were very few people in the world who were willing or able to be the ones who would provide the products and services needed in whatever environment you were in, as well as opening my eyes and helping me to spot the opportunities. So right here, he was learning to be an HGV mechanic, which is a decent mechanic. But anyway, so the other thing that I read in this book, which I thought was cool, was called Beginnings and Endings. The autumn of 2007 is a pitiful time in my life for 2 very different reasons. First, on 2nd September, I entered my first strongman competition, which, bearing in mind what I do for a living, is pretty damn pivotal. I was actually my brother James who first suggested I enter it, and was in reaction to my size. In fact, I think his exact words were, "You've got to do something with all that muscle, fucking muscle, Ed." I was lifting some ridiculous weights by this point, and so I agreed. It was just for shits and giggles, really, but because there was a competition involved, that made it interesting. The advert for the event is read as follows. So he goes through the strong, I won't read the event, but he's going through the strongman event, which I thought was cool, and it is 6 different events. And I think the hardest one that I read is the truck pull. A 16,500 pound truck pull, 20 meters course, and the time limit is 75 seconds or faster. And the other thing with strongman is, I believe he won his first one in his or he competed, that's what it was. He competed in his first one in his teens, and he was about, I actually found this, let me see here. He was 19, sorry. He was 19 when he first competed in his first strongman competition. Now, what have I learned from Eddie Hall? I learned that obsession's not a disease, it's a gift. But I also have learned that his troubles and trials were huge, and he still managed to become the strongest man in the world, still managed to take care of his family, and to this day continues to work as hard as he does to make money and make a living. But now he's a boxer now. He still works out. He doesn't do much of heavy weightlifting now, but he's a boxer now. He's still making quite a bit of money, and he just was my inspiration to want to move heavy stuff, because he originally wanted to be a bodybuilder and lift like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but because of his genetics, he didn't think he'd be a good bodybuilder. And sometimes that does happen. But this is a very, very good autobiography. As you've read, I probably should have read it with more of a sense of humor, but Eddie's got a great sense of humor. It is a great book. He is very, very motivational, and he has a clear vision of where he was wanting to go through this process. But this is a good book. I hope you read it. If you're a fan of Eddie Hall, you'll enjoy it, and you'll learn a lot of deep stuff about his life in this book. Thank you all for watching, and you all have a good day.